Hi. Hello. Yeah, you're going to see me for more than a minute and a half, and you're going to see me horizontally instead of vertically. So, first of all, hi to the 4,000 new of you guys. How you doing? My name is Connor. I don't think we've been properly introduced yet. Also, please ignore this jankety setup we got going on here. As you can tell, I am not home. I am in the middle of the Mediterranean Ocean. Sea. It's Mediterranean. Whatever. You know what I mean? Currently overlooking the sick... I don't mean to flex. Currently overlooking the sickest sunset. It's like straight out of Star Wars. Anyways. So, hi, guys. You guys saw the title of this. Obviously, it's about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's get some things out of the way first. Yes, I don't just post shorts. That's a relatively new thing. It's what, August? So I started doing this around March, April. So 4 to 5 months are the shorts. But for the new people on the channel, typically every single week after the Steelers games, I do a quick recap and we talk about it. Huge Pittsburgh Steelers fan. And we also do the podcast, Mega Casuals Podcast, which is obviously the name of the channel and almost everything on socials. And so you'll basically get usually about 2 videos a week that are 15 to 20 minutes, or no, this video will be like 15 to 20 minutes and the podcast is about 45 to an hour. So this is just you and me though. How's it going? You can tell that sunset is real because it's all of a sudden gotten dark on my face. But normally I have a better mic. This is just all I've packed. So in case I had to make skits for the socials, which have been awesome. Shout out everybody for all the love and support on those. It's been so much fun. Especially like there was just a very sudden ramp up in views. I was getting pretty consistent views. And then like last week or 2 weeks ago, it just shot up out of nowhere. So I appreciate that. And it's been really, really awesome. The support really, I already have so much fun making all of those, but with getting more support and seeing people show so much love to it, it makes me want to make it even more. So it's been awesome. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the Steelers. So, okay, technically preseason's not over while I'm making this. It's the middle of the Lions preseason game, but they've taken out Fields and they've taken out Russell. And obviously that's going to be the 2 big talking points of the preseason because they technically still don't know who the starter is because it hasn't been announced. Yeah, I know. Stop writing your comments. Stop yelling at your screen that they've said Russ is the quarterback 1. You're not wrong, but you're also wrong because what Mike Tomlin said is that they were going to proceed as if he is the quarterback 1. But out of all of the teams in the NFL, I'm pretty sure the Steelers are the only one now to not announce who's going to be the week 1 starter. So let's talk about it. Russell only got 1 drive in this Lions game. It might have been 2. I didn't watch the first 5 minutes of the game, but I think he only got 1 drive and then they put it in Fields. So I don't know if Pittsburgh just liked what they saw out of that drive, but also it seemed like a pretty short-lived drive for Russell because he had the great 3rd down play to Pickens on the left hash. But other than that, then you had Cordell Patterson run in like a 35-yard touchdown. So there really wasn't much to see from Russell, especially out of the red zone, which I think is going to be one of the most important aspects of the season for the Steelers that has not been talked about. It's going to be how well we can convert in the red zone because when we were with Matt Canada's offense and even the second half with Mike Sullivan, we and Eddie, co-coaching, co-coordinating, we were not able to convert. I mean, yeah, we were getting field goals, but touchdowns are essentially what you want. And if let's say 80% of the time that you're in the red zone, you're getting a field goal, you are leaving 4 more points on the scoreboard. And when Pittsburgh is like the number 1 team in 1-score games over the last 5 years, that can make a huge difference. If 2 red zone trips give you an additional 8 points, that's absolutely huge. So I think Pittsburgh would have liked to see what Russell can do in the red zone. And then we did get to see Justin. So I'm not going to talk that much about Russell for this game. Because he really didn't have that much besides from the pass on the left hash, like I said, to George Pickens. He did seem a little more comfortable in the pocket, but that's also not always on Russ. That is on the offensive line. Though I will say, and I give the offensive line most of the, I don't want to say blame because it seems really derogatory, but blame for the issues that the quarterback's been having the preseason and I'm also not going to put it on the players and put it on the coaching because Pat Meyer, again, I'm someone, I've said this before, I've been fortunate enough to work with people in the NFL. I've gotten a very lucky to get to know people in the league. And so, when they're no longer just people behind a screen, you really don't want to just talk shit because you don't understand that it's a person. And so this is something that I've always said and I will stand by. You can be a great person, but shit at your job. And Pat Meyer has been shit at his job. And I'm not saying that I can do his job better. I'm just saying for the expectations of being the offensive line coach for arguably the most well-known and most respected franchise in the NFL, you should be living up to that, especially coming off of like Pittsburgh having Mike Munchak for so long, who was able to turn, I don't want to say nothing players, but like lower drafted players into absolute gems, and now we have very highly touted players who aren't living up to their potential. And I genuinely do think that is coaching, especially when it's Pat Meyer, who has coached up some of the worst offensive lines we've seen in the last 5 years. So, but anyways, going back to Russell and Justin, Russell looked a little bit more comfortable in this pocket, so he was getting a little more time. But I will say, I went on a huge tangent there. Even though the offensive line is to blame, Russell and Justin as well, but we're just going to focus on Russell for right now, has been one of the highest percentage quarterbacks when it comes to creating your own sacks. So the offensive line could give him as much time as possible, but if he's, I don't want to say dilly-dallying, that's such a weird term to use here, but dilly-dallying in the pocket is going to lead, or not smartly navigating the pocket, then it's intelligently is what I should have said, then he's going to create his own sack. And so I think that there were certain elements of that in last week's game against the Bills, but this week it seemed a lot more comfortable. And also, he is finally getting some more reps after his injury. But like I said, for this game, I'm not really going to talk about Russ. Then Justin, I think got 3 series. We got the touchdown on the first one. We punted on the second one. Then we got a touchdown on the next one. Or was it? No, I think it was touchdown because it was the strip fumble, and then it was a punt. And Justin looked great. He delivered a great dot to, I'm sorry, I don't know all of our preseason player names, number 81. It was a great dot. I think a lot of people are going to say that's a ball that could have easily been picked. But I think Justin Fields is in the shittiest situation, because if he does something great, people are going to say, oh, well, he could have done this, or, he got all of this and that's why he was able to do it. And if he does something bad, then he's a bad player. He can literally never win because the expectations for him are so high, which is funny because the expectations are high for him because of how low he fell in his draft to Chicago and how much people were expecting. Anyways, so I think it was a great place to ball. And then Pittsburgh having a quarterback as elusive as he is and as fast as he is, like the read option is so, Zach, the host of the podcast, said this. He was like, it's really nice to be able to do read options. And Pittsburgh's done like 1 or 2 over the last couple of years, but it's for like they're intending to get 2 yards on a 3rd and 2 or a 4th and 1. Now, when it's a quarterback designed run or just a read option, it's really nice to have that threat. Like there was a play, it didn't turn into points. Justin was like a yard shy, or not even a yard, like an inch shy of the goal line. But basically what they did is they had the running back split out left. They had him run a bubble, and it seemed like it was clearly going to set up a bubble screen on the right side for the running back. And normally what a lot of teams will do for this is they'll have 2 running backs in, so that way, if the bubble isn't there, they can option into the secondary running back. So like if Pittsburgh is doing this, it would make a lot of sense, because you'd probably have Jalen, the receiving 3rd down back, run that bubble, and then you'd have Najee, the power back, on the goal line running it if it doesn't work. But here, no power back, so you're thinking, okay, they're probably just going to throw it. And the entire offensive line even shifted to the right side. Shifted to the right side, so it moves the defense to the right side. You're like, okay, yeah, it's definitely a bubble. Justin holds on to it. It clearly looked like it was going to be a keeper, and he did, almost got it, but it's just nice to have that flexibility now. So Justin had 2 really good drives. I think both Russ and Justin looked great. We just have more to see, more to say from what we saw from Justin in this game against the Lions. And like I said, if they play in the second half, I apologize. Oh, well, the Lions tied it up. It was 14-0. Now it's 14-14. But so looking at the half, Justin Fields, 3 for 4 for 40. Yeah. And I think Justin, now let's talk about it. Personally, I think Justin should be the quarterback week 1. And that's not me saying Justin is the better quarterback, even though I kind of do believe that. I genuinely do think Russ and Justin have very similar floors in this Pittsburgh offense, but the ceilings are astronomically different just because of the speed and the elusiveness and the age of Justin Fields. So yeah, if you want to roll out the quote unquote safe option, you put out Russell Wilson. And listen, I do not like Russell Wilson as a person. I've been adamant about that. I can't with him. But I can also recognize when someone is getting the shit end of a stick, which is Russell Wilson, all the criticism from last year. I'm also realizing how dark it is, and I'm really sorry. I'm like backlit. This is horrible. As someone who knows cinematography, film, and lighting, this is horribly done by me. But going back to Russell got the shit end of a stick last season. He was actually having a really good season, and it was arguably the reason the Broncos were in the playoff picture at one point. And then they sat him for whatever reason. And I mean, he generally did have a pretty good season. I think he was 26-6 touchdown to interception ratio in 10 games. Pittsburgh didn't even sniff 20 touchdowns. So that's the other thing. It's like, that's your base. If Russell can throw 26 touchdowns this season, that's a phenomenal base considering what Pittsburgh's had. And again, Russell did that with a worse offensive line, worse offensive weapon, worse running back room, probably equal weapons if you're getting an average for wide receivers, and a worse defense. Now you're getting a better defense, a better offense, should be a better offensive line, but who knows what the coaching is going to do there, and arguably better weapons overall. And if he gives you a 26-6 season, Pittsburgh should be 1-2 wins better. Now moving to Justin, I would say had better weapons last year, but not as good of an offensive line or a defense. Chicago's defense did get better, but that was mainly in this offseason. And Justin last season was I think he was 2,800 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions in 9 games. Again, that is more touchdowns than we threw last year. So that is still, and that is in less games. That's not a 17-game pace. And that's not even accounting for rushing touchdowns or rushing yards. And so the big thing for me, though, why Pittsburgh should be rolling Justin now is because this is essentially kind of a punt year. There are no expectations for Pittsburgh this year. There's no expectation that we have to be bad to get player A, B, C, or D in the draft, and there's no expectations that we have so many expiring contracts or, our window has just opened for a Super Bowl that we have to win a Super Bowl this year. This is such an in the limbo year for Pittsburgh where you should just be able to experiment. And maybe that's why they brought in both quarterbacks. I genuinely do believe that Pittsburgh brought in Russ thinking they weren't going to be able to also get Justin. And so that was just kind of a contingency plan. And now you have 2 quarterbacks, which, to be fair, the rule is if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. I do also agree with that. But between what I think are very similar floors, and yeah, Justin has boneheaded plays that Russ probably doesn't make as often, but also Russell is 10 years older, so that's, yes, going to lead to more IQ, but also lead to less mobility, less ability just overall as a quarterback. And I think Justin, just with how high his ceiling is and how much he can elevate the players around him, this is also isn't even taking into account if Pittsburgh gets Brandon Ayuk, which is looking like a slim to none chance at this point. But, he can elevate this offense, in my opinion. Russ might be able to elevate players, but I don't think he can elevate the offense as a whole. Like, I think Russ would probably elevate George Pickens really, really well, and maybe whoever ends up getting that wide receiver 2 spot. Meanwhile, Justin, he takes the lead, he takes the weight and the pressure off of all of the running backs, because who knows what, who's going to get the ball. And if you're in the shotgun or even in the pistol, or even, you can't really run a read option out of single back, but if you're in the pistol or in the shotgun, the offense is going to, or the defense is going to always have to be aware of the quarterback, which is going to take at least one player off of the running back, because they're going to have to spy on the quarterback or just contain the quarterback. So you're taking the leave off of that. And I do think that his mobility will then, pocket breaks down, he can move out of the pocket. That takes some of that pressure off of the receivers and tight ends. Pat Freiermuth, I think, is going to have a really good season. Tight ends usually, unless you're Kyle Pitts, succeed with an Arthur Smith system. And so I just genuinely think, and also the age is another thing. Pittsburgh did not pick up his 5th-year option. I don't know if they didn't or they just haven't yet. I don't think they will. But this is a season where, let's say Justin has a great first half of the season. Pittsburgh rolls him out week 1. Come week 8, we are 5-3, and Justin looks like, people are like, okay, yeah, he's had his bonehead moves, but this team is above 500. They also have the hardest strength of schedule in the entire league. So that's a lot to say, if you're above 500. And it's like, okay, he's looking great. Then at that point you go, hey, Justin, here's a contract. Here's a 3-year contract for $35-40 million, which at this market is a fucking steal, considering now we have receivers asking for $35-40 million. So you see that potential actually working in the season, not in the preseason, not in training camps, not in OTAs, but actually in games. Then cool, you're 8 weeks ahead. Or you roll out Russell, and because here's the thing, everyone knows this. At some point in the season, Justin Fields is going to play. Whether it's the second half of the season because Pittsburgh isn't looking that great and they have to make a change, or it's at the last 2 weeks, or because an injury happens, or maybe it's 2 weeks into the season because Russ just does not look good. But at some point in this season, Justin is going to come in if Russell starts. I think everyone can almost agree on that. Russell will not play the entire season. But I think it's fair to say if Justin were to start, there is not a surefire way that Russell gets to play. Like, if Justin is having a average season, Russell probably will not get sent in. If Russell's having an average season, leading to Pittsburgh having an average season, then, and I'm not saying, because I know I said that like his base would be better than what I'm saying, but I hope you understand what I'm saying here. If he's leading the Steelers to an average season, then Pittsburgh's going to see that and say, okay, well, we're halfway through the season, and it looks like this offense could be having more to it, and we have the more explosive guy in the back. Let's put him in, and then congratulations, just wasted first 8 weeks of the season. So that's where I'm at. And also, like, especially with Russell dealing with a calf injury, which it hasn't even looked like it's really affected him, so I'm not really worried about that. But if there is any concern, I mean, last time we saw a calf injury with a quarterback, it was Joe Burrow, who then re-injured it and was out for the season, and it was Aaron Rodgers in the offseason that led to his blown up Achilles. So I just think the fact that Justin Fields will start at some point in the season, that's like a given, versus if Russell starts, versus if Justin starts, it's not a surefire. Because I think a lot of people forget, if Caleb Williams was not in this draft class, Chicago would not have traded Justin Fields, and Justin Fields would still be a starter. He would still be one of 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL, and most likely not on a hot seat, because Tyson Bagent was not going to be competing for the starting job. I think a lot of people are forgetting that. So I just think the expectations on Justin have been pretty unfair. Those are my opinions. I'm probably shocking to the new people here. I don't script these. That's right. Yeah, all my videos are scripted. You'd think that this is scripted. No, I'm just talking to the camera. That's why this playlist is called Talking to the Camera. There's no script. I just kind of go off my dome. That's why I go on weird tangents and stuff. But okay, so that's quarterback talk. I'm not going to spend that much time talking about the receivers. George Pickens is going to be the one. He got 1,000 yards last year, and 5 touchdowns with 3 different quarterbacks, 2 of which did not look great, and one was Mason Rudolph, who looked like a pretty average. It's not a shot. That's just, I think, in comparison to the other 2, he looked like an average quarterback. And George Pickens was finally able to kind of somewhat thrive. I think in the games that Mason started, I think George got like 30% of his yards. So clearly, one of these things just doesn't belong here. But yeah, so George got 1,000 last year. I think he should be a shoo-in for like at least 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns. That should be his floor. It would not surprise me if he went off for 1,300 plus, just because of the talent and also the lack of competition for targets now that Deontay is gone, and if Brandon Ayuk doesn't come in. And honestly, if Brandon Ayuk does come in, I think that actually just kind of solidifies at least 1,100 yards, because I really hope if they do bring in Brandon Ayuk that Arthur Smith moves George Pickens into the slot, because we don't need 2 deep threats on the outside when George Pickens has the route running ability to be in the slot. And you can just put Van Jefferson, who is a deep threat, on the other outside. I'd like to see Calvin Austin in the slot, but it looks like that time is come and gone. So yeah, George Pickens most likely going to be very reliable. So draft him in fantasy as a wide receiver, like 2 or 3, not your 1. Okay. Even like your 2 is like, he'll be a wide receiver too, but like don't be your 2. Other receiving options I want to talk about: Pat Freiermuth. I think Pat Freiermuth could actually get like between 800 and 1,000 yards this year. Also look for him to get a lot of red zone targets. I'm talking exterior red zone, so 8 to 20 yards away from the goal line, versus I think anything closer than that will most likely be either a slot receiver, whoever's playing that, or it'll be just running back or read option, or quarterback design runs. But I do think Pat is going to get, with the play action boot game really coming into its own in Pittsburgh right now, especially we've seen in the preseason that Pittsburgh has not used that very often. Sorry, I'm going like a million miles an hour. The Arthur Smith system does use the tight end a lot, so I do think we will see a lot of Pat Freiermuth. And Freiermuth has been very underrated because he hasn't been utilized, but a lot of people do remember when he was playing in Ben's final season, Ben utilized him very, very well, and it shows like, yeah, Pat is a very, very good tight end. I think a lot of people are going to remember that and recognize that this year. And then lastly, I've already talked about the offensive line, so we're going to talk about the running backs. Obviously, we have, how many times have I said obviously? Sorry, guys. I'm out of my flow. I haven't done one of these in a while, so I'll get back into it. But Jalen did get the hamstring injury last week against the Bills, which it sounds like it kept him out this week, but I think that was just a precaution to make sure he's ready for week 1. I still wouldn't be surprised, though, if Najee got like 80% of the carries and just the snaps in week 1 to just prevent further hamstring damage for Jalen. But I think this is a season. Arthur Smith doesn't use a multi-back offense, except for when he has a good back like Bijan. Then he's like, no, Tyler Algier, Cordell Patterson, you guys take the goal line. But in the history as a coordinator, I should say, he doesn't use a multi-running back system. And Pittsburgh, they say we have 2 1s. Technically, Najee's the 1, but I don't know how Pittsburgh's going to approach this because they love Najee, but they didn't pick up his 5th-year option, and I don't know why. And I think it could be a situation of they're willing to let him walk, even though they do want to have him in Pittsburgh. But it's like kind of like an Austin Eckler, Melvin Gordon situation where Melvin Gordon was great, but the Chargers recognized like we have a guy that was undrafted and we still have a couple more years on his contract, so we don't have to pay him until the future. So maybe we wait on that. But I do think Pittsburgh is going to utilize, it's going to be probably like a 70-30 snap percentage, 70% being Najee, because I think that he's going to come out of the more single backs, the single back sets or I form, just under center sets. And then Jalen's going to come out of more shotgun pistol if we use Wildcat for whatever reason, just because of that explosivity and also his ability to catch the ball, even though I do recognize and know that Najee can catch the ball really, really well as well. But I genuinely don't know. I think total overall, rather than trying to project a player, I think that the Steelers should and could rush for 1,400 to 1,700 yards, which is not asking a lot because both of our running backs almost had 1,000 all-purpose yards each last year. So I think that's definitely the realm of possibility. I know that accounts for receptions and receiving and rushing yards. But I do think, again, we're taking a step up based on what our floor was last year. So I think Jalen, if it's a 50-50 backfield, I think it's very possible that both of them get 1,000 yards, like 1,030, 1,050, something like that. But we're just going to talk running back room as a whole. And I think it should go for somewhere between realistically 1,400 to 1,700 yards and 10 to 15 touchdowns. I think that's pretty realistic. So not going to spend too much time on the defense because we didn't make that many big changes. We're still waiting on the whole Cam Hayward contract stuff to work itself out. Nick Herbig has looked like a fucking monster in the preseason though. So if it's nice to have him as depth. It's sad because we don't really need him because of how good Highsmith and TJ are, and it's not like we can just have him fill in for Cam if Cam, isn't on the team next year because he's an edge guy who's a lot smaller. He could not play tackle. Keanu Benton looks great though, who's probably going to supersede Cam whenever Cam's time is up. And then Corey Trice is going to be interesting to watch because I was really high on him last year, and then obviously the injury happened, and I still stand by that. Joey Porter is a top 10 corner in the league. He's been phenomenal. He just doesn't get the respect that he deserves because he doesn't get thrown at a lot, so he doesn't have a lot of flashy plays. Minka's back. Deshaun Elliott to pair with Minka. Kind of bummed we didn't go after Justin Simmons, but I do think Pittsburgh just was pretty high on Deshaun Elliott, so I'm curious what we're going to do there. And yeah, I know we have Dante Jackson, who we got in the trade with Deontay, but he was a player that Carolina was most likely going to cut just to save some cap. But Pittsburgh was able to offer, a player swap essentially with some picks involved. So my expectations of him are pretty low. I think Pittsburgh just wanted to get a disgruntled player out of the locker room. And yeah, I think, again, if Pittsburgh is able to go 10 wins last year, they should, with the upgrades they have made. And yeah, I'm calling them upgrades because of how, and I'm a Kenny Pickett truther, but I can admit when I'm wrong. And with the new quarterback room and the new offensive system, Pittsburgh should be accounted for at least one more win. So if Pittsburgh gets 11 wins this year, it wouldn't surprise me. I think if they don't get 10, there are really no excuses except for maybe the fact that we're in the hardest division in football and we have the hardest strength of schedule. So we will see. I'm going to go enjoy my evening on the boat and the rest of my trip in Europe. And, you guys won't see me next week because there are no games next week, but you will see me after our first game against Atlanta. You'll hear from me, and also you guys will see me in skits all the time. So again, thank you guys for love and support. Also, my voice is going out because I haven't had anything to drink. Usually I'll take a sip of something, but talking for 25 minutes straight, get your voice a little raw. Pause? Nah, we're fine. Yeah, thank you guys so much for the love and support on the videos, and I hope you guys like these too. Like I said, I'll do these every week. If there's anything you guys want me to talk about when I do these, I'm a 24-year-old man. If there's anything you guys want me to talk about, let me know. I'll try to bring it up. Mainly these videos where it's just me, usually just going to be Steelers talk. And then in the podcast, that's where we'll talk about other things. So if you guys do want us to talk about stuff, always let me know. Training camp podcast, or training camp, wow, throwback. That was almost 2 years ago. Make It Casuals podcast will be coming back once the season starts, so keep a lookout for that. Skits still going to be every days, but Thursdays and Sundays. Sorry that I missed a day last week. I was traveling. So anyways, I'm going to go enjoy my cruise, and you guys know how we end these.